Fumble fans, it's Britt Johnson. To stay up to date with me, make sure you follow me on all social media at @IamBrittJohnson. And of course, click subscribe to join the Fumble fam if you haven't already. It is time for the most unpredictable time of the year, March Madness. The show hasn't even started yet, and this season of college hoops has already been the most unpredictable we have seen in a really long time. Prior to the season tip-off, the #1 ranked team was Michigan State for the men's, and they're actually not even ranked in the top 25 now. So I'm actually going to take a step back, and I'm going to go through my top picks for who I think is going to go into March Madness as #1 seeds. My first #1 seed that is going to go into March Madness is the Baylor Bears. Their biggest game they have is going to be this Saturday against Kansas, who they already beat in the Jayhawks' house. Win or lose for this game actually doesn't matter to me as long as they actually win the rest of their games, which I think they're going to do that. If they do that, they are for sure going to be a #1 seed going into March Madness. Second, I have San Diego State Aztecs. Now, this should actually be a cakewalk heading into March Madness for them. They literally are the only undefeated team in regular season. I think they're going to go into March Madness still undefeated. The rest of their games seem pretty easy. There has been some question about the difficulty of their schedule since they play in the Mountain West, but I'm not worried about it as they head into March Madness. I still think they're going to get that #1 seed. And, you know, Kawhi Leonard went there, so he probably has a little good luck for them. All right, my next #1 seed is going to be Dayton. Now, who is used to hearing Dayton in talks of #1 seeds going into March Madness bracket? Not even anyone's grandparents that are alive right now. Dayton actually cracked the AP top 5 this week for the first time in 64 years. They haven't lost a game since December 21st and should finish out the season pretty strong, so I definitely have them as going into March Madness as a #1 seed. Last team I have for the men's is Gonzaga. Only competition, if you could call it that, is going to be this weekend against the #23 ranked BYU. They have literally blown out teams this year. They even won a game by 50 points. This team is seasoned. They know how to show up in big moments. They've actually never won a national title. The closest they came was in 2017 against UNC. Obviously, UNC won, but, you know, this could finally be Gonzaga's year. Either way, I still have them as a #1 seed. I know you guys are worried and wonder, wait, she missed Kansas. I'm not interested in the Kansas Jayhawks as a #1 seed, especially if they lose to Baylor this weekend. And you know what is so interesting about my #1 seeds this year? 3 of the 4 teams aren't traditional basketball powerhouses. We have no Duke, no Kentucky, no UNC, no Louisville, no Villanova. Like, this is going to be so interesting. I am so excited for this March Madness. And of course, it's going to continue to be unpredictable because now we're going to talk about the women's #1 seed predictions. Now, women's basketball hasn't been so unpredictable in past years, but this year is a different one for sure. This week, you guys, UConn was ranked outside of the top 5 for the first time since 2007. Let me put this into perspective for you. They spent 4,760 consecutive days in the top 5, and now that streak has been snapped. Women's race is so much tighter this year than the men's race. 2 teams that were actually ranked #8 and #9 last week are now in the top 5 this week just because of 1 game. So this is still anyone's game who's going to enter into the #1 seeds. All right, so it's time to get to my predictions for the women's #1 seeds, and they are as follows. South Carolina, who have actually 2 big games left. They are currently the #1 team in the country right now. I believe even if they lose one of those 2 games, they will still get a #1 seed going into March Madness. Next for women's, I have the Baylor Bears, and I did have them with the men's too. So I do believe the men's and women's teams are going to be at the top of the game this season. They both will be #1 seeds. They're both going to be great in March Madness. After taking a look at the rest of the Bears' schedule, I think it should be smooth sailing from here on out, and they'll still remain a #1 seed come season's end. Okay, can we take a moment to talk about the Pac-12 right now? The Pac-12 is on fire this year for women's basketball. Let me mention these teams right now. Oregon, Stanford, UCLA, ASU, Arizona, and Oregon State are all ranked in the top 25. That is like half of their conference is ranked in the top 25. Now, Oregon actually plays number 4 Stanford, which is also in their conference, on Monday. That is going to be a huge game. I think Oregon's going to win. Even if they don't, I still have them being the number 1 seed coming out of the Pac-12 and going into March Madness. All right, Maryland is my final pick. I actually don't really love them in March Madness. I don't think they're going to do great. I didn't think they had a tremendously great season. Some of the games that they lost were against very poor teams. So I'm picking them just because they're in the Big Ten and they're number 1 in the Big Ten. So they're going to come out as a number 1 seed. But as far as going all the way in March Madness goes, I don't think they're going to make it very far. All right, guys, so those are my predictions for all the number 1 seeds for men's and women's basketball. I cannot wait for March Madness to start. We have so much stuff coming for you guys, so make sure you tune in. I'm your host, Britt Johnson, and I'll see you guys soon.